My name is Caroline Langley. I am a barrister, I'm a mediator, and a United States attorney. I practice in Ireland and in the United States. I also practice in England and Wales and practice in Hong Kong. I am a member of the Parental Alienation study group, which some of you may here also belong to. Just quick explanation, the slides are overlapping like this because we've had a technical formatting difficulty. But anyway, so today what I'm going to do is draw on one very simple case study that was heard back in Ireland in December. And it's really the most recent case that we've had, and it will illustrate some of the matters that we need to address, and in my humble opinion, should be addressed based on the other countries I've worked in, and making suggestions that I hope will, that went backwards. Okay, there we go. Right, so this, the name of this case is CG and BG, decided in 2019. And the judge gave a guideline to recognize parental alienation. The judge didn't give a working definition that we all adhere to. And indeed, as I'm listening around the room, there actually isn't a unified definition. So this definition is that parental alienation exists where one parent is deliberately undermining any relationship that the child might have with the target parent, which could only be to the detriment of the child's welfare. Now, when families have a problem, the first thing they do is start arguing about the children. I want the kids, you want the kids. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to end up in court. The court, first of all, is going to look at the best interests of the child. So they'll ask for a Section 47 report, and that is prepared by a social worker or a mental health professional. Sometimes the court actually wants to know what the child is thinking, so they will ask a similar professional to compile a Section 32 report. So the child talks to a stranger and a stranger talks to the judge. We'll see that in a minute. Again, my colleague earlier mentioned Article 8, interestingly, because Article 8 sounds like a great idea, but it does actually work against us in the end, because what Article 8 is kind of saying, no one can interfere in private family life. So the court has to deal with that issue on top of everything else. To date, out of the reported cases in Ireland, and there have not been many, all the parental alienation cases, and I say reported cases, only 20% of cases are reported, deal with Hague issues, a Hague return. And I'm not quite sure how many of you are lawyers in the in this room, but a Hague return is when a child is taken illegally and without permission from one country to another. Right. So here we go. As I mentioned before, best interest of the child, Section 47, voice of the child, Section 42. This goes through an expert goes to the judge, and it's getting there's a lot of people talking, there's a lot of craziness. We can streamline this. One option in Ireland is the judges do have an option to speak directly to the child or the children. They don't need to use an expert. Personally, I do not like children giving evidence. Having a chat with a judge in chambers where the judge is casually dressed and it's very informal, that's okay. But there are often times when usually an alienating parent insists that the child speaks directly to the judge. In the United States, the age for that is 11, the minimum age, unless there are exceptional circumstances. And in Ireland, there is no minimum age. So also, I'm trying to illustrate here, the judge isn't necessarily going to get the correct story. The child is going to be coached. It always happens. Right. So my idea for unifying parental alienation so that a court can see it, we must have a working definition. And I'm talking about all of the countries that it happens in, which is every country in the world. The court must act immediately to disempower the over-empowered alienator and the over-empowered children. Children are actually, we think of children as victims and pawns, and ultimately they are, but they actually have a lot of power in these situations. They have a power to say, I don't want to see dad. I don't want to see mom. That's a powerful thing for a 6-year-old to say. Here is what the rest of my presentation is going to focus on, is spotting what is parental alienation, what is the red flag. Okay, so we're going to look at a red flag and try and understand why that then triggers the court to say, this isn't just couples fighting, divorcing, this is actually something different. This is parental alienation. And from spotting one red flag, the court is then empowered to order a specialized expert parental alienation report, and that is not the mental health reports that I mentioned before, the Section 47 or the Section 32. Now, when a parental alien expert meets a target parent, so that, and I'm going to use mother and father because that's the majority of cases, the target parent is the father. He's the one who can't see his kids. He's angry, he's afraid, he's anxious, he's agitated. He comes across as, you know, he doesn't come across as Santa Claus, okay? He's been through a lot, hasn't seen his kids, and, you know, it's bad. The favored parent, when they are interviewed by a parental alienation expert, will present as cool, calm, charming, and convincing. Hello, come in, let's have a report. Kids are fine, they're thriving with me. Oh, I'm not stopping them from seeing their dad. They can see their dad anytime they want. That's what the favored parent does. The favored parent is also called an alienating parent, okay? So I'm trying to keep the vocabulary streamlined here. I'm going to go back to the same case again in 2019, CG and BG. The child in this case was 11 years old. Well, what happened here? The mother, this is a Hague return case, the mother took the child from the European Union, the country was not identified in the case. She abducted the case over to Dublin, and she retained the child in Dublin. Now, it was said 2 years ago in a previous case that stealing a child to another country automatically results in parental alienation. I won't go into that. I don't think that necessarily adds up. Okay. The father and mother came to an agreement. You stolen my child, but you know what? Let's just try and deal with it. We'll share access. You can, my child can live in Ireland, but I would like her to come and visit me for the holidays. Great. Not so great, because mother shook hands, said, I agree to all this, and then she said, no, 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 no. She reneged on the agreement. Now the father has come back to court again, and remember, all these court visits are not free, Father comes back, says, my child is being alienated and I want a change of custody. And if you take anything away from my presentation, it is the next slide. The father says, here's why my child is being alienated. My child was stolen to Ireland. The mother has refused to let me see my child. The mother went to the police and said I was abusing her. She got a protection order against me, so I can't even go within 100 yards of the house. The mother made sexual abuse allegations that the father sexually abused the child in the country in Europe and in the country and in Ireland. Both of those allegations were investigated and thrown out. And the child can't visit because the mother lost the child's passport. Just for a moment, which of these behaviors do you think indicates parental alienation? There's only one. I won't read them all because I want to move on with the slides. It is that the emails that the child wrote to the father were adult in character and expression. All the other things that happened, the sexual abuse claims, the protection order, the stealing the child, those are not indicators of parental alienation. I have 1 minute. There are 4 indicators. I'm going to run through these. It's a 4-factor model. We now today have a 5-factor model. There's also a 6, 7, and 8-factor model. You just really need to look at 4 things. And those are the 4 factors which you can look at in your own time. One of the 4 factors that these emails represent are what are called Gardner's 8 indicators of an alienated child. And I put the 3 flags that show the behavior. So you need 1 of 4 factors, and then you can have 1 or 8 of the behaviors. And you see now the craziness. And that's why there's a spiral. But you only need, and I will repeat this again, 1 red flag for a court to order an expert PA report. We are starting to run courses to teach people to write parental alienation reports. We will have that information to you as soon as possible. It's not a social work report, but it is an additional qualification for a mental health professional. Thank you very much.